Hey there, podcast listener. Do you have a business that you want more people to learn about? Well, I am offering special sponsorship deals for the Knowledge is Power podcast. And if you don't want to go out and spend a lot of money, that's no problem. We have monthly subscription sponsorships available. We have 3 spots open per episode, a pre-roll, mid-roll, and an end roll, starting at $20 a month. And if you'd like to do a full sponsorship for an episode, contact me at knowledgeispowerri@gmail.com. For other information, visit kip-pod.com and contact me on the website if you are interested in taking out a sponsorship spot. So thanks for tuning in, everybody, and enjoy the episode.
Stay hungry, stay foolish.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they're easy, but because they are hard.
I have a dream. Will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Hello and welcome back to the Knowledge is Power podcast. I'm your host, Max Willett, and we're going to be staying on the politics train in this episode. I'm very excited. I enjoy listening to politics and hearing about the local issues going on in Rhode Island, and we have another great guest for that today. So if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, that would be great.
Cool. I'm Caswell Cooke. I live in Westerly, and I'm running for Senate District 38.
Very cool. So I appreciate you taking time out of your day and coming on the podcast. So I would love to hear sort of your life story. Let's go back, and talk about, your past, where you grew up and how you got to this point in your life.
You got an hour?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm 48 years old. I'm married to my wife, Christine. I have 2 daughters, Maddie, who's 12, Leah, who's 14, and my stepson, Lewis, who's 15. I've lived in Westerly pretty much my whole life. My family was from here. I was actually born in New York City because my mom graduated from Westerly High School, married my dad here. Then they moved to New York City. I was actually born there, but I think by the time I was 2, we were back in Westerly. Went to St. Pius in Westerly, the school. And then I went to Prout in Wakefield in high school, first class of boys. So there was like 300 girls and 8 boys, good odds. And I think I went to senior prom 3 times. And then I went to Boston University and majored in history and political science. And then lived a little bit. I think I tried the Disney thing when I was in my 20s. And I think I lasted 3 months working at the Great Movie Ride. And then I came back to Westerly, where I've been most of my life, in this vicinity, at least, the last, in my adult life for sure. So here's where I am. And then I grew up singing in the chorus of Westerly under the great George Kent. Started when I was 8 years old, and also the choir at Christ Church in Westerly. I did that for years. And now I'm back in the chorus, and my daughter sings in the chorus, which is kind of cool. So it's like a tradition. Yeah. First ran for office when I was 28, ran for Town Council in 2002, and I won by 2 votes. And then I was elected 6 times, and then I ran for state rep in 8 years ago against Sam Azanaro. And it was really close. It was like a 51-49 thing, but I lost. I think losing was actually the best thing that happened. Then I took 4 years and did not do politics. And then 4 years ago, I got back in and got on the town council for the last 2 times. And now I'm running for state senate. I was planning on going out and doing nothing for a while, maybe waiting for Azanaro to retire. But then all of a sudden, Senator Dennis Algier, who has been here for 30 years as our senator, he decided he was retiring. So I said, well, this is the time, man. Let's do it. So it's not just Westerly for my district anymore. It's the Senate district is all of Westerly, which is about 80% of the population of the district. And then it's a good chunk of Charlestown. It's kind of a weird shaped map. It goes up around Burlingame, and then it goes like south of Route 1, and then it stops before Matunic and jumps up into like a few streets in South Kingstown. So it actually encompasses a portion of those two towns as well as the whole town of Westerly. So that's kind of the short version of everything. I've done a lot of stuff in town. I've been on the board of trustees of the Westerly Library in Wilcox Park. I'm the executive director of the Misquamicut Business Association, which I founded 23 years ago. So we do Spring Fest, Fall Fest. We created a drive-in movie theater here that we run all season. I own a restaurant called the Haven Express in the summertime. I sell real estate with Berkshire Hathaway. I wrote a book and I did 2 documentaries. There you go.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, I was on your website and it's incredible. I was like, man, what else could this guy do? And then I didn't see that you wrote a book. And I was like, holy crap, you wrote a book.
And I'm recording an album because I said 3 things I wanted to do. I wanted to record an album with my band. I wanted to write a book, and I wanted to direct and produce a documentary, which we did 2 of those actually. But so yeah, the album's next. Those are my bucket list things.
Very cool. So I would love to hear, sort of what made you want to get into politics when you first ran, when you were 28 years old. It says on your website, what sort of inspired you to want to get into that career?
Well, my grandma, Margaret Phelps Cooke, later Spear, my dad's mom, she was actually a lot older to be my grandma. She was born in 1900, which you think about, it's the year 2020, and my grandma was born in 1900.
Yeah.
But she was in her 40s when she had my dad. He was like the baby of 6. So she was older. So like when I was born, she was already like 74 years old, but she lived to be 92. So I at least had her for the first 18 years of my life. And she would tell me about people in our family history going back to the Revolution that were involved. Like first Surgeon General of the United States on George Washington's staff. There was a senator from Ohio. There was a lieutenant governor from Connecticut. There was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. There was her grandfather was DA of New York City. It was kind of like this thing where maybe it's in the blood. I don't know. That's obviously not true, but it just, she kind of instilled the public service thing into me and said our family had done that for a long time. That was there. And then when I went to Boston University, I got a job working at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard. And I was the audiovisual guy. And every week it was somebody. I mean, I remember my first week, it was Ted Turner and Jane Fonda. I mean, Ted Turner, who created CNN, Jane Fonda, the actress. But it would be like Al Gore. It'd be like Dan Rather or Tom Brokaw from the news. It would be like every JFK Jr., Teddy Kennedy, this prime minister. And I was just like, holy man. And I got to listen and absorb these people's speeches, Ross Perot, all these cool people. And over those 4 years, it was pretty amazing. And then I did 2 internships in college through BU. I went to London and I worked for a member of the British Parliament as an intern, which was totally cool. And one day there was an event where Margaret Thatcher, the former Prime Minister of Britain, was speaking. And I got to listen to her in person speak, and I got to talk to her and meet her. And that was like amazing. And then the following year, I interned for a congressman in DC and just got to work at the US, at the Capitol. And I got to just be a part of, fly on the wall kind of thing. I was just an intern, but there's Bob Dole, there's John McCain, there's, this senator, that senator, there's Bill Clinton, it was just, everybody was there. And it was just like, I just absorbed it. So I started doing this little public access show and interviewing has-been rock stars and whatever. I had fun with it. Free backstage passes to the Beach Boys kind of thing, But I also would interview some politicians. And when I was in DC, I was like, well, there's Bob Dole, there's this one, there's that one. Let's interview him. So we did. Newt Gingrich, I don't care who it was, I interviewed him, both sides of the aisle. So when the 2000 presidential campaign happened, it was ended up being Al Gore against George Bush, the younger. But during the primary, there was a ton of candidates. And I had asked if I could interview them. And most of them said no, of course, because who's this kid from Westerly with a public access show? But John McCain's people said, come on up. So we went to New Hampshire and spent 3 days riding around on his bus called the Straight Talk Express. And he was known in 2000 as very accessible to the media. And he was running for president of the United States, Vietnam War hero, senator for many, many, many years. Obviously, he was a presidential nominee in 2008, lost to Obama. But so in 2000, it was him versus Bush pretty much. So there I was on the Straight Talk Express, and McCain's like, "All right, kid, your turn." And we had like the most fun time. Like our interview was hilarious. I got to dub it from like VHS tape over so I can get it online because it's like a waste sitting in my basement. But he was so cool. And he said, I'm running for president because I want to inspire a generation of Americans to commit themselves to causes greater than their own self-interest. And I want to reform government. And I just said, wow, like that's just such a message. And he said, the only way you can do it and help is if you go back to your town and run for local office. Long and short of it is I went home and I ran for town council. So
Wow.
John McCain, the short answer, the long answer to your question is John McCain. And then I stayed in touch with him, especially through Senator Chafee, who was then Governor Chafee. So when he would come around, I'd go and, see him and talk to him. And then in 2008, and I was a delegate for him in 2000 and 2008 at the convention. But in 2008, I was vice chair of the Rhode Island McCain campaign. So when he came to Rhode Island, I got to introduce him on stage. And it was one of those, ladies and gentlemen, the next president of the United States, John McCain. It was hilarious. It was fun. It was thrilling. And then he lost. But it was just cool. So like, I was a McCain type of Republican for a long, long time. I'm running as an independent now, but he's kind of one of my heroes.
Very cool. That's an incredible story. That's very cool. To meet somebody like that, with his reputation, and that's incredible. So and a great person to look up to in politics, I think, as well.
They don't make them like that anymore. And he worked across the aisle with Teddy Kennedy and with Russ Feingold on campaign finance reform, and he had a little temper sometimes. But he was just such a straight talker. And when I lost that election a few years ago, I mean, I used to always worry about what I said. Oh, I'm on the town council. I better not say this or that or offend this person or that. But finally, I said, screw it. If you just don't say what you mean, I hate people that talk like in this hyperbole and they're like, if I'm elected, I will, just stop it. Yeah. My whole thing is, look, I've been on the town council 16 years. I'm the only person running for this seat that has any experience in government. So I've got a record of 16 years. Are there votes I took that are probably, were they maybe wrong, or would I have taken a different vote now than I did 15 years ago? Sure. I'm sure my opponents will dig those up. But I mean, I always say there's no Republican or Democratic way to pave a street. You just got to get it done. Absolutely. So that's what I've done. Yeah, that's what I've done. And I've just tried to, a little straight talk, like my buddy, John McCain. Well, he wasn't my buddy, but my acquaintance, John McCain. And just go from there. So that's what I do.
Great. So, also, you talked about some of the other things you've done. So I'd like to just sort of go over every single one, and then later on in the conversation, maybe we can get deeper into them. So, let's talk about your book, because I looked at it on Amazon, and it's quite an interesting title, and something that I honestly didn't expect when I clicked on it to be about what it's about. So if you want to explain, your book and why you decided to write it, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's called the Death and Resurrection of the Episcopal Church: How to Save a Church in Decline is the subtitle. So the Episcopal Church is obviously one of many denominations in America. It's kind of Catholic and Protestant. So, when we think of Catholic, we think of Roman Catholic or maybe Greek Orthodox, but there's also Anglo-Catholic. So if you looked at the Queen's funeral, that's the Episcopal Church. I mean, that's the Anglican Church, the Church of England, but in America, it's known as the Episcopal Church. So the Archbishop of Canterbury, the smells, the bells, the processions, that's the Episcopal Church, the Anglican Church. When you see the funerals at the Washington National Cathedral for the presidents and stuff, that's an Episcopal Church. Maybe we're the unofficial official church of America, because America doesn't have an official church, but the Episcopal Church has kind of just been one of those, a smaller denomination, but with a lot of influence, shall I say. And it's similar, in nature to the Congregational Church, the Presbyterians, the Methodists came off of the Episcopal Church. So all churches since probably the late 60s have been experiencing decline in America for whatever reason. It's just the world we live in. Less people go to church, less people are religious, less people go to synagogues, less people go to, so I've always been an Episcopalian. Christ Church is right downtown next to the town hall. And I've watched over the years as the Episcopal Church, I think membership peaked at 3.6 million back in the 60s, and it's down to like 1.7. I mean, that's half the membership gone in 50 years. I mean, people are dying and then not getting replaced. So I decided, I'm not a priest. I'm not a, I'm not a really religious person, like in that respect. But I looked at it from a practical sense and said, why is sort of mainline Protestant religion or denominations, why are they dying? Why are the Presbyterians, Methodists, Congregationalists, Episcopalians, Lutherans, why is it just tanking? And so I just I decided to travel around to some churches around the country, some that were awesome. St. Martin's, Houston, Texas has 10,000 members. It's the church that George Bush and Barbara Bush attended, James Baker. In fact, when I went there a couple of years ago, it was before Barbara died, and there she was a couple pews ahead of us. They got money, they got people. It's amazing. And then I'd go to a church that's got 16 people in the pews on a Sunday. And I became, in my church in Westerly, it's kind of a democracy, really, the Episcopal Church. We elect our leaders and we pick our priests. We hire them. We don't they don't get appointed. So I'm what they call the senior warden of the vestry, which in English means I'm the chairman of the board. And I have been for the last couple of years at Christ Church. So I just, I wrote this book. It's practical. I think that the Episcopal Church has become, just like most of those denominations, very political. And I think when your religion or your denomination and you start preaching politics from the pulpit, you're going to alienate half of your membership and maybe engage half of your membership. And so I've always said there's got to be a via media, a middle way, which is you don't need to stand up in your pulpit on Sunday and preach about gun control. You don't need to stand up in your pulpit on Sunday and preach about, these polarizing issues like the 2016 election. I want to go to church to get away from that. And, the Episcopal Church has decided back in the 50s, they used to joke that we were the Republican Party at prayer. The Vanderbilts and all these families, they were all in the Episcopal Church. And it was very kind of waspy, kind of, upper crust Republican. Well, now it's become like the progressive Democrats at prayer, which is just as bad as
Absolutely,
being,
yeah.
It shouldn't be either. It should be a neutral place, or as people like to say, a neutral space, a neutral place to go to church. So that's what my book's about. It's about knock it off. The Episcopal Church welcomes you. It doesn't mean it welcomes you. Oh, and by the way, we have to make sure that you're welcome. It welcomes you encompasses everyone. We don't have to get into subgroups, culture wars, subcategories. Just welcome everybody and knock it off. We're the church that women are priests, people can have same-sex unions. We do it all. It's great. Now knock it off and move on. We allow it. Stop harping on it. Just let's get to work. But they just can't do that. The leadership of the church can't do that. So that's what my book's about. It's very critical of the leadership. I interviewed people on both sides of the aisle. I interviewed Tucker Carlson from Fox News because he's an Episcopalian. So I got his view. And then I interviewed Father Alberto Cudier from Florida. And I went to his church and spoke. He's great. And he used to be Roman Catholic, wanted to get married. So he became Episcopalian. So, and he does Spanish language television shows. And so it was kind of like I wanted to get people on all sides of the spectrum. In fact, his church is probably the most diverse church in the Episcopal Church in the United States in Florida, because it's got people from all the different islands. A lot of them are from islands that were run by Britain. So they grew up being Anglican / Episcopalian. So it was really interesting to go there and bring my message to a group of people that are so wide ranging. Before the pandemic, I started speaking and going to different churches and talking about the book. And then the pandemic happened. And so I just updated the book post-pandemic, because now churches have to worship online, and it's become a hybrid now. And we were pretty much at the forefront at our place here in Westerly of the week after the pandemic, when they shut everything down, we were online. And now we do a hybrid where, half of our congregation watches online every week from all over. and the other half is in the pew. So that's kind of the book. And I've probably sold a whopping, 1,200 copies.
That's still more than I've sold, and I haven't written a book. So I mean, listen, that message is amazing because not only does it apply to the Episcopal Church, it applies to a lot of other things, how things are being politicized and ruined when they really shouldn't be. It's like, just like, I remember the comedian Ricky Gervais when he had I can't remember, at some useless award shows for movies or something.
Yeah, Ricky Gervais. Yeah, the British guy. He created The Office. Yep.
But he was having that speech. Oh man, I think it was right before COVID, and he said, all you actors have, no right, lecturing the public on your political beliefs. Get up here, thank your God, thank your agent, and F
Get
off.
the hell out of here.
Yeah. And I mean, that couldn't be more true, and it just, that I want to read your book now, and I might buy it because I didn't really know that's what it was about. And I'm very interested in reading it because, poetry, life is, as it repeats itself, things repeat itself over and over and over again. Everything is very similar and how things fall and get destroyed. And that, I think, perfectly sums up why a lot of things are being ruined nowadays, is because movies and culture in general is getting politicized when really people just want to go to the movie theater and get entertained, and
yeah. Well, I think America is okay with it because look at Top Gun. There's no politics. There's no wokeism. There's none of that stuff. It's just a good action flick with Tom Cruise.
Absolutely.
And sometimes not every single movie has to be a cause, and not every single thing we do has to be, sometimes you just, people do have a daily life. They're not always thinking about these polarizing issues. And, one of the reasons I ran as an independent is because I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of the fact that a Republican puts out a bill and every Democrat votes against it because it came from a Republican. And I'm sick of a Democrat putting out a bill and every Republican votes against it because it came from a Democrat. And that's just BS. It's got to stop. I know that I'm not going to change the whole culture, but if one person can get elected as an independent to the state house, it may send a small message. Obviously, I'm going to have to pick who to caucus with and, that sort of thing. But I'm sick of it. I support who I support for elective office in Rhode Island because I like the person and because of what they've done for my community. So I like Dan McKee for governor, even though he's a Democrat. And I like Alan Fung for Congress, even though he's a Republican. And I like them because I've established a relationship with them. They've done things for Westerly. They paid attention to Westerly. They've helped my community. Therefore, I support them. I'm not going to blindly say, well, I'm going to support that guy or that woman because they happen to be a Democrat or they happen to be a Republican. So I feel great freedom being an independent. I don't have any party line. I don't have any party money either, but I don't have any party line, and I don't have anyone pulling my strings. I don't have any of these organizations that like fund everybody, and you owe them a vote kind of thing. Screw that. I don't do it.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny. Westerly, a lot of people in Rhode Island will probably live in the state their whole life and never go to Westerly, which is very unfortunate because Westerly is an amazing town. I live in Charlestown. And it's kind of incredible because I've met people in like Northern Rhode Island that have never been to Westerly. And I'm just like, how? It's just, it's a hidden gem of Rhode Island, Westerly, Charlestown, and parts of South Kingstown,
and I know that some of our residents want to keep it hidden, and that's totally cool. My job is tourism in the summertime with the Misquamicut Business Association. But that's what I've done over the years. I've had a relationship with Don Kucheri, with Link Chafee, maybe not so much with Gina, definitely with Dan McKee, who I affectionately used to call Lieutenant Dan when he was the Lieutenant Governor. In fact, just this morning, as we're doing this podcast, the governor was down at speaking to our annual MBA meeting, and then we dedicated the bike pedestrian path that we created down at the beach. I invite these people, regardless of political party, to our district. so that they can see what we have to offer. Maybe they have to pack a lunch. Maybe they have to pack a suitcase to get here. I don't know. But I can say that since I've been in charge of certain things in our area, different, the business association, whatever, being on the town council, I'm not in charge of the town council. I just invite, hey, governor, hey, lieutenant governor, hey, congressman, hey, senator, come to Westerly, see what we have to offer. Westerly generates a ton of money in hotel tax, meal tax, all that. And so does Charlestown, so does South Kingstown. And we don't get our fair share back. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've been fighting for, is to get our fair share. Hey, we need trash cans at the state beach. This is really stupid. Carry in, carry out. No one is carrying a dirty diaper back to Hartford, Connecticut. Forget about it. So give us some dumpsters. They did. Took me a while. Got it done. Those are the kind of things we do. But you're right. I DJ at the Windjammer for fun on the weekends in the summer. And I always ask the audience, the people, where are you from? Make some noise if you're from Connecticut. Yay! Massachusetts. Yay! New York. Yay! Rhode Island. Crickets. You're right. You're right. A lot of Rhode Islanders do not come down. Even people in Western are like, hey, I'll see you after Labor Day, Kaz.
Yeah.
I get it. It's fine. But thank God we have tourists, because it provides jobs. Where would all the kids in our high schools work in the summer if it wasn't for the tourism? And it keeps our taxes low. I mean, Westerly's got one of the lowest tax rates. I sell real estate, and I sold a house the other day to a couple from New Jersey. And the taxes on the house are like, I don't know, $4,800 a year. And they're like, Jesus, our house is assessed for the same thing in New Jersey. We pay $32,000. And, wow. it ain't as nice of an area as we live in. Let me tell you that.
No, absolutely not.
No offense, New Jersey. But honestly, we have such a beautiful place, and it's about a balance. It's keeping a balance, quality of life, making it affordable, protecting the environment, but also having a place people can live. It's not easy to balance those things. People run and they say, I'm running to protect the environment. Okay, but then what are you going to do about affordable housing? Because you're going to have to cut down a couple trees, right? So you have to balance all that. You have to balance open space, housing, the environment. It's like three legs of a stool. It's not a single leg. And that's part of, when you've done it for a long time and you have a little bit of experience, and I do, you're able to have that balance. You're able to do projects that are able to balance it all out. And we could talk about that after too.
Yeah. So we were just talking about your book. Now let's move over to the documentary that you directed. I actually watched the first few minutes of it with the Westerly chorus.
Which documentary? Oh, the chorus. Okay.
Yes. So the one that's on your website. And if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, so I did two documentaries. The first one was like 2008. And I did both of these with my friend Chris Walsh, who's like the master editor. He's the master filmer. So the first one I did was on a group called Chad and Jeremy. So back in the 60s, when the Beatles came to America, there was the British invasion. So it was the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, and then anybody that had long hair and a British accent. And Chad and Jeremy were one of those groups that came over. They were on Batman. They were on the Dick Van Dyke Show. They were on Johnny Carson. They were on everything. And they had their 2 or 3 years and their few hits. And then they went away for a long time. Then they came back, reunited, and, did the nostalgia thing. So I did a documentary on their life story, which was really fun. And it took like a couple of years of my life to do it. But I was able to tell this story and meet these amazing people from music history. So fast forward a few years later, I always thought that the chorus of Westerly needed its story told. I mean, you have 200 volunteer voices. You have kids starting at age 8 up to age 90, whatever, singing. You had this amazing guy, George Kent, who at age 19 became the organist and choir master at Christ Church, and then 3 years later expanded that into a concert choir, which became the community chorus and then the chorus of Westerly. Thousands of people have gone through the ranks of that chorus, and now Andrew Howell has taken over for the last decade with the chorus, and he's just as amazing. And grew up in the chorus and was trained by Mr. Kent at URI and whatever. So I thought the story had to be told. I mean, this is a chorus that's sung at Westminster Abbey, St. Peter's in Rome. They've toured the world. They've been to Prague and Vienna and England and Italy, and they're going to France next year. We have just it's there is no organization like the Chorus of Westerly anywhere between Boston and New York. You've got to go to a big city to see something like this. And the fact that it's all volunteer singers, and that you've got 8-year-olds singing the masterworks, Bach, Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, all these. And I said, and then there's this beautiful camp that the kids always went to in New Hampshire. And I just wanted to tell the story of what this chorus was. So it took 4 years and probably $100,000 of raising money, because you had to pay all these orchestra union fees and all this stuff. And we filmed over a period of 2 years. We interviewed all the players. We got archival footage. And I think the finished product is awesome. We won laurels in the New York Independent Film Festival. We were in 2 film festivals in New York. We were in the Rhode Island Film Festival. It was during the pandemic, so we actually premiered it at the drive-in, because we couldn't premiere it in a theater like I wanted to.
Yeah. Yep.
It was a labor of love, and the Chorus of Westerly is probably, if there's things besides my family that shaped me, it's George Kent and the Chorus of Westerly. Just what it instills in you from a young age, a sense of belonging, a sense of respect, a sense of community, seeing a project from start to completion. You start out with some notes on a page, and you work in your section, and then you put it together with the rest of them, and then you put it together with an orchestra, and then you do it in front of an audience. There's nothing, it's an amazing thing to watch my 12-year-old daughter. And I look down and see her at the other part of the, on the risers when I'm up in the back in the bass section now. And I look down, and there she is, and she's like singing in Latin with a 90-piece orchestra. And we're all doing this together. And it's like, it's such a cool thing. And the familial relationships, the several generations that do this. And then we talk about that in the documentary. It's like grandpa, daughter, granddaughter, 3 generations, in the group. So I just think it's just, and everyone I think around our area in, Westerly, Pawcatuck, Charlestown, Hopkinton, everybody's probably been to summer pops in the park, with the orchestra and the fireworks and all that. And that's a part of what the chorus does, but what they do the rest of the year is pretty amazing too. So this documentary is on the Chorus of Westerly's website. It's on caswellcooke.com. Maybe you'll put a link to it in the podcast, but I would say it's a great watch. And it was fun to direct. It was fun to edit. It was fun to produce with Chris Walsh and with the chorus. And it was one of those things. It was a passion of mine to get that done. And there it is. It's good for history, because this guy named Orrin Jacoby had done a documentary on the chorus, kind of following them through like one concert from the camp in the summer with the kids all the way through the rehearsals to the actual night of the show. It was done in black and white. It was kind of an avant-garde thing. I think it was done in maybe 1975, 76. I may have been 1. I don't know. So we watched that, and we actually used some clips from it. But to be able to do one, 40 something years later and bring it all up to date was cool. So it's called Mostly Music, The Journey of the Chorus of Westerly. And I recommend it highly. And actually thousands of people have seen it, and PBS aired it many times over the past 6 months. So it's been on PBS, which is really a thrill.
Great. Yeah. From the first 10 minutes that I watched of it, it looked very professionally made and very well done. So congratulations on that. It looks very great. And I think I'm probably going to watch it at some point. I'll watch the whole thing.
Cool.
Yeah. So let's move on to the next thing. Well, there's a few other things, but let's talk about, you said you were in a band, the Beach Band.
Yeah. I always wanted to be in a band. I'm really no good. I'm kind of a crappy lead singer and keyboard player, but I surround myself with good people. So I do this, not to digress, but actually this year is the 25th anniversary of this play I do called Guy Fawkes Bonfire Night. It's a British holiday. This guy tried to blow up Parliament. They caught him, tortured him, executed him, great British stuff from 1605.
Typical stuff. Yep.
Yeah. Kind of like the Mel Gibson movie Braveheart,
Oh, great movie.
So Guy Fawkes tried to blow up Parliament. They used his face as the mask for Anonymous in that movie V for Vendetta. That's Guy Fawkes.
Okay.
Yeah, that mask. And when you say, hey, you see that guy over there, that's where the term came from, Guy Fawkes. So Fawkes was one of like 12 that tried the plot to blow up the king in Parliament, and they caught him. So, I think like the Scottish probably look at it as Fawkes is a hero. He tried to liberate them. And the British look at Fawkes as a traitor. So I was in England and I saw the event, the bonfire. I remember the guy at the Andrea in Misquamicut said, what can we do in the fall that would get people here? I said, well, we can have a bonfire, and nobody in America celebrates it, but let's do Guy Fawkes night. And I remember the first year we did it, it's actually a priest at one of the local churches. He said, oh, why are you doing this anti-Catholic play against the Pope? And I'm like, oh, come on. This is like a spoof. And 400 years later, I mean, come on, too soon? It's like, yeah, it's like, come on, knock it off. So, and
that guy was probably alive back when that happened.
Yeah. So anyway, fast forward 25 years, we do this play that is so hilarious. It is Monty Python meets the Beatles, meets Chevy Chase, and throw in some Caddyshack. And it makes no sense. We have all these actors. We have the Kentish Guard, fife and drum, the Westerly Morris dancers, like 30 actors. My band is in it, playing songs from the 60s and 70s, which has nothing to do with 1605. And for some reason, 500 people show up. Wow. And everybody in the cast, we do one rehearsal and they read from the scripts, which makes it way more funny. And I basically steal from everything, including the chorus of Westerly's 12th Night, which they did for many, many years. It's been put on ice for a while, but for about 40 years, they did something called the Celebration of 12th Night. So it's just this kind of medieval, funny, ridiculous, laughable, good time. And it's coming up October 1st. And it's the 25th anniversary, which means I don't know how I got that old, but I did. But that's when I started my band. We started it with back in, I think, 2001. I said, maybe I can put some musicians together and we can sing like a moody blues song, like Nights in White Satin, which kind of sounds classical. And it just evolved from there. And then I used to put on these big concerts. We had like Davy Jones from the Monkees and Jefferson's Starship, and we had a couple of American Idols. And I would do these big concerts at the beach. And I said, well, if I'm going to put all this work together and raise 50 or 60 or 70 grand, I'm playing. I get an hour or a half hour. So we called it the Beach Bums, which morphed into the Beach Band. And then we started a little side project called Soul Stone, which is the one we're recording the album with. And then all during that time, I was also a DJ because I used to work in radio, WJJF in Hope Valley and WPJB in Wakefield. So I was doing radio, and then I became a DJ like for weddings and things, and at the Andrea. And I was there for like 10 years. It was like a part-time fun gig on the weekends. And then I had kids and grew up, and I stopped doing it except for weddings. And then a couple of years ago, the guy who owns the Windjammer said, you were pretty good at that wedding. You should DJ. So now it's like last year and this year, I think I had 25 dates at the Windjammer this summer DJing, and people come and they dance, and these people that show up. This one group of girls showed up. They're like 25. They're like, we heard all about you. I said, where'd you hear about me? From my mother, who used to go to the Andrea in 1995. So you get like a couple generations. It's hilarious. So the owner of the Windjammer said, well, your band could play here sometime. And I love their Peel and Eat Shrimp. So she's like, you're going to have to call it Caswell, Cooke and the Peel and Eat All-Star Band. So we just did this hilarious thing this summer where we had t-shirts, got shrimp. And people are running around wearing t-shirts that say Caswell, Cooke and the it's so stupid that it's hilarious. But the other night we did a benefit, a show called Blues for the Bridges, even though we're singing yacht rock, not blues, with our friend Bobby Christina and a couple other bands. And we were raising money and getting signatures so that we can get barriers placed on the bridges in Rhode Island, like Mount Hope and the Newport Bridge, for suicide prevention. So that was, something that my band did that we were able to do for a good cause. I guess over 30 people have jumped to their death off the Newport Bridge alone in recent years. So the whole idea is to get netting underneath. And so, a fun, stupid thing like the band, which is ridiculous, can sometimes be used for good stuff too. So yeah, so the whole being in a band or being a DJ thing is really what I do for stress relief and to let my hair down and quite honestly make a little Sorry, my phone got, make a
No
little extra
problem.
money, make a little extra money on the weekends and stuff. So, it's fun.
Yeah, great. So man of many talents, and to get on top of that, you had already mentioned this. You're a realtor as well. So if you want to explain sort of why you decided to get your realtor's license and get into the industry.
Yeah, it's been about 3 years, and I work for um, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, and I just thought, well, I know a lot of people in town, pretty good name recognition, kind of understand our communities. I've pretty much only sold houses in Charlestown and Westerly, and Hopkinton and Richmond. So just this area, because I know the economy, I know the taxes, I know the municipal services. So it kind of works. So I took the real estate test, and went to work for Berkshire Hathaway. It fits in with the 10 other jobs I have. I kind of lead a non-traditional life when it comes to, employment. I'm mostly self-employed with all these different jobs, except for the Misquamicut Business Association. So I just thought it was a great thing to get into. And, I do it part-time, and it's interesting to meet new people that want to move to Westerly or to Charlestown. And I really enjoy it. It's something that I didn't know if I would like, to be honest. But finding people a house is a cool thing. So I'm happy with doing that. Can we pause 1 minute? I just need to make a phone call.
No problem.
Just hang on 1 sec. I got.
All right. So I'm getting my real estate license. And I'm wondering, how many times did it take you to pass the exam? If you remember.
I think I passed it. I don't remember. Maybe I took it twice. I might have failed the first one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why did
because
you fail the first one?
I think like the fail rate in Rhode Island for real estate license, like the first time, like over 60% of the people that take it fail it the first time.
I don't feel so bad.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy.
You got to fill in the little circle, and it's like, I'm not really good at figuring out acreage in my head. But I just Google plat lot, So I think
exactly.
I might have had to take it a second time. But the good news is I was able to get my license.
Yeah, it's
See, now a real politician would have said, "Oh, I passed that with flying colors, man."
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, it's not an easy exam. They try to trick you. So, but yeah, real estate is a very interesting industry. I enjoy it as well, and I look forward to possibly having a career in the future. But yeah, so something else I found on your website is the Haven Express restaurant. So if you want to talk about that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so down in Misquamicut, by the Weekapaug Breachway, I started working at a place called the Seafood Haven at the time, for my business partner, Bob Barber. Actually, my first job for him was in Charlestown on the corner of Route 1 and 216, where Quaney Bait and Tackle is. Back then it was called the Cozy Corner Restaurant. So I worked there in high school for a season, and then Bob moved down to the beach. So I worked for Bob starting in 1993 when I was 19 years old. And then around 1999, we became business partners, and we tried a couple other places. We had a place called Captain Zach's for a few years. I think the septic system failed and the landlord wouldn't put a new one in. And then we had a place called the Breachway Market for a few years. But Seafood Haven we had for 25 years. And in 2017, unfortunately, our landlord died. And we always knew that his son was going to take over, and that was the end. So we were sad. Seafood Haven ended, but we lucked out because right across the street, actually on the beach at the Dunes Park, they have it's like public parking. It's also kind of a trailer park situation. They have a concession stand right on the beach. So we just decided, well, we'll call it the Haven Express, as Seafood Haven. We don't have that anymore. The other thing is it's a lot easier for us because, I mean, my business partner, Bob, he's spry, but he's 80, and, working from 9 in till 10 at night, 7 days a week, all summer is a long day. So the Haven Express is easier because we're open 11 to 4. When the park is open, we can be open. It's Memorial Day to Labor Day. So it really is. And it's a lot more fun to literally serve your food, and they literally come up to the window on the beach. It's kind of cool. So that's that's our little summertime, more of a concession stand than a restaurant, but we do have great lobster rolls and things like that. And I've always run small businesses, but and I love employing people too. I mean, at the Seafood Haven, we probably employ 25 people a season. Now we're probably at like 7 or 8. Between that and the drive-in, I've got like 10, and then the MBA with our road crew and stuff. So there's a lot of people we employ.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. So it's very interesting to hear all these different sort of things that you're involved with. Like, how did you know when you were growing up that you're like, I don't want to work a 9 to 5. I want to, be my own boss or do my own thing. Like, what made you realize that? Because this is amazing to be involved in this many things and be good at this many things.
Well, whether I'm good at them or not is
Well, it seems like you're pretty good. You're successful in a lot of things that you've done. So
I think when I went to Disney World,
yeah,
I was like, this sucks, man. I mean, it sucked.
mm-hmm.
It's like, I am not wearing this uniform, and it was terrible. And like, someone would say, where's the bathroom? It's over there. Oh, you can't point. You must say it's over there. And I'm just like, I just can't live like that. I guess it's some language. It's like a swear if you point. I have no clue what they were talking about. And then they're like, the whole thing is there's only one Mickey. And I'm like, no, but seriously, how many guys running around in a Mickey suit? Or, no, there's only one Mickey. And on every test they give you is how many Mickeys are there? One. And I just was like, yeah, I can't. I'm not saying I've never worked for the man. I worked for WERI radio.
Yep.
I've worked for the Misquamicut Business Association for 23 years, but I did create it. But I report to a board of directors. They have the power to hire and fire me. I have bosses. I mean, geez, I've been on the town council 16 years. I'd say the people are my boss. They could throw me out, but they've elected me 8 times. So that's a good job reference. Mm-hmm. And I have a boss at Berkshire Hathaway, but you're right. It does allow a little bit of freedom. It also means that, when times are tough, they're tough.
Yeah.
There's been some Januaries when there ain't no money, man. It's like, I make more money in the summer, obviously, between the restaurant, DJing, all the stuff going on that generates my income, but it can get lean in the winter time. So self-employment is not for the faint of heart.
No.
And there is something to be said about having a quote unquote real job, where you are guaranteed that paycheck every week. That's,
yeah.
But I've never had it. So I guess I don't miss it.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that I'm glad that, I worked. I mean, I'm only 21, and I feel like in high school, I kind of thought like, I kind of want to have my own business. And I think working at a particular company made me realize that. I'm not going to say, what company, but working typical, cashier, dishwasher, things like that. I'm like, first of all, I should probably go to college and figure things out there. And then when I was at college, I really didn't enjoy it either. But even if I make less money doing what I want to do, I'm okay with that. And being happy and just satisfied with what I'm doing and the things that I'm doing. It's so much better than just going to work 9 to 5, doing the same thing every day over and over and over again, and being a politician or realtor. Sure, you have bosses, but you don't have to do those things. You're helping people, and it's just an amazing thing to do and a feeling, so it's just it's a real accomplishment to be involved in this many things. So congratulations on this.
Yeah. And I mean, it looks better on paper than in reality, but and also the other thing is, once I had kids, it changes things a little bit. You got to take care of your kids. You got to pay for them. It's one thing when I was 20 something and single and was able to just, I don't care. Let's go try living here for,
Mm-hmm.
a few months, or let's go to Key West in the winter and do something. Yeah. I mean, it's more freedom, and maybe I'll have that freedom again when the kids go to wherever they go after high school, whether it's college or to a job or whatever they do. Hopefully they don't live at my house for the rest of their life. But maybe they will.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think you're at the perfect age where you can try all that. I mean, everybody was forced to go to college for a whole generation. You're not going to make it, kid, if you don't go to college. It's what you heard.
Hmm.
And now you're hearing, Jesus, we can't find anybody that does trades. Try to find an
Yep.
electrician, a plumber, a carpenter, someone that has a skill, not
Yep.
a degree in, how to train rabbits or something. I mean, we're talking like a real skill.
Yeah,
Which
absolutely.
is something I'm lacking. I mean, I went to school and I went to college. I never went past 4 years. I actually still never got my degree. So I went to 4 years of Boston University, and because I went to London for a semester and DC for a semester, I missed a French class. So it's like 25 years later. Someday I'm going to take that French class, so they'll actually give me the diploma. But anyway, they got my money and they got
Yeah.
my 4 years of my life. But what I'm saying is, it's like the toilet breaks. I don't really know what the hell I'm doing. I wish I did have a trade too. I wish in high school we learned more trades, and I think Charahoe does a good job with that. Wesley's,
Yep.
trying to catch up with that. But we've got to have skills. We don't have any skills that we're passing on like we used to in apprenticeships and things like that. So, that's important too. That's one of the great things, like Westerly Education Center. We were just talking
Yeah.
about this morning with the governor, like training people like EBs, like electric boat. We need people, but they're not, we need people that have a skill. Okay, well, where can I go to get trained? I mean, that's the kind of thing that I support big time,
Yeah. And I like to, way backtrack now, moving on to a separate topic, but you mentioned you had interned in London
Yeah.
and, for the British Parliament, and, it's something very, alien to me, because I don't know a whole lot about how the British Parliament works, and maybe that's a failure of public school systems, but,
Well, we're
um,
American, we're not British, so
no,
we
exactly.
all
But
we all speak English because of the where the country was, the colonies or whatever. But I
yeah,
mean, they speak English in a lot of countries. But yeah, I mean, parliamentary form of government is way different than a democracy. I'm losing my train of thought here, but a parliamentary form of government is obviously different. So in England, you elect your MP, your member of parliament, which I would say is kind of like the House of Representatives,
hmm
but you don't elect your prime minister. So it would kind of be like us electing people to Congress, and then whoever they chose for Speaker of the House would also be the president. So, like in that case, Nancy Pelosi would be our president.
yeah.
I'm not passing judgment on that.
No comment.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
no comment.
But whatever, but that's what it would be. So, and then they have the House of Lords, but they took away a lot of the power from the House of Lords. And I don't even know if they have veto power. And the king and the queen, or the queen and now the king, they don't really have any power either. I think Chevy Chase said it best. He said, "What does the queen do?" He said, "Well, she queens and vacuums." No, I'm a monarchist. I love the queen. I got to see her once from a balcony waving years ago, and I'm as enamored with sort of the British monarchy as I think the whole world has been in recent weeks because of the queen. But in reality, it's the House of it's Parliament, the MPs, and the Prime Minister and the ministers. That's where the power is. Whereas here, I think we do have more checks and balances. We have our president. So in England, the Queen or the King now does the ceremonial stuff, and the Prime Minister does the governing stuff. In America, the president does both. We don't have the ceremonial part is wound into, because we don't do royalty here. Although the Kennedys were like royalty, I guess, right? And the Bush dynasty, and whatever. But we have our families that are, even the Clintons probably, but we don't have royalty, obviously. So it's different. I like obviously America's democracy better, but it is interesting how the British do things. Yeah. So it was fun to be over there. I mean, I worked for this guy named John Marshall. He was a member of parliament. He was a conservative member of parliament from a place called Hendon South. So I would take the tube, the underground from I lived in South Kensington near the Royal Albert Hall, and I would get on the tube and go to his office. He took me once to Parliament to have dinner, and then I got to watch like Prime Minister's Question Time, which is their big thing where they yell at each other. They never speak to each other in Parliament. They're not allowed to clap either. That's why they're always like, "Here, here, here." They can't clap. It's not allowed. And they can't speak to each other. So they can't insult each other. They have to go through the speaker. So they'll say, "Madam Speaker, please tell the right honorable gentleman that he's an ass." It's very, it's very proper, In America, it's a lot different. You got your Trumps and Bidens and Hillarys, and they just yell at each other. So they yell at, so it's different. So it's more civilized over there. But yeah, so that's you just got Caswell's 101 on the difference between Britain and America.
Well, yeah, that's great. I'd love to talk more about it, but what is the difference between a conservative, like you had mentioned, a conservative in Parliament and a conservative in the United States? Like, are there differences, or are they pretty similar?
There's more parties in England than there are in America. America has parties, but Republicans and Democrats dominate. But we do have libertarians, which occasionally will get somebody elected to a town council somewhere. And we got the Green Party, which, gets a few percent in a vote, but they don't count for anything once the election's over because the winner takes all. In England, the winner does not take all. So your majority party wins. So say the Conservatives, like they are now, they're in power. The people on the loyal opposition is a coalition of Labor, which is like the Democratic Party. They have Liberal Democrats. What the hell was that? It was Patty Ashdown I totally forgot. Then the Irish, there was Sinn Féin. There's different groups, Socialist Democrats, whatever. And if there's more of them, and they will form a coalition government, and they have greater numbers than the other side, they can flip Parliament and pick a prime minister. And that's happened. There's been coalition governments before, but if they have a situation where they have an all-out majority, they're in charge. The other difference between England and of course, we're way off the 38th district here, but it's fine.
That's okay.
Podcast.
Yeah.
But the other difference is there's no nice way to get out of office. In America, you got 2 terms as president. Even if you don't get reelected on November, whatever, you don't have to leave office till January. And it's very nice. And you get time to say goodbye, thank your staff, give speeches, do a victory lap, whatever you want. And then the day of the event, it's a big pomp and circumstance, and you turn over the reins to the new president. In England, you lose an election, you're out 12 hours later. Your crap is moved out of 10 Downing Street. You go over to see the Queen, hand her the keys, or now King Charles, hand him the keys, and you're done. It's very, and you can be out at any time. Your party can just say, we're done with you. So there's no nice way for a prime minister to retire. I think Churchill was able to do it his second time around. Tony Blair was able to name his time. Thatcher, not so much. She had done 11 years, but she had gotten into some trouble, and her party was mounting an offense against her that she wouldn't have won. So she chose to step down. But most of the time, British prime ministers have to resign, and it's not glorious. And they don't treat them nice once they're out. They don't care about them. Like we revere our former presidents in America. They don't.
Yeah. Well, sort of like what recently happened with Boris Johnson, right?
Yeah,
he had to resign.
Gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gone.
All right. So you mentioned District 38. So why don't we go all the way from across the pond back to District 38? And a pretty vague question.
Can I tell you a funny story, though, I heard?
Sure.
So when you're down in Misquamicut, Block Island is 12 miles off the coast. You can see Block Island very clearly. So one of the restaurants at the beach, they said this customer came down and said, "Oh my God, I cannot believe how close it is." And the person with him said, "What?" And he pointed across and said, "England."
No way. No, my God.
It's a true story.
Oh my gosh. I don't know what to say about that. That had to be a joke, right? Am I missing something?
No.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
But we need to fix our education system, folks.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so all right. Back to District 38.
I don't mean to throw you off now.
No, wow, I've never heard somebody say that. All right, so let's just go over something pretty vague here, but something that's important. What are like the main issues that you would probably focus on within Westerly, and then obviously when you're in state Senate, within the state that you'd be focusing on if you get elected?
Yeah, and it's different because it's Westerly, and now this district also encompasses Charlestown and South
Mhm.
Kingstown. And right now we have two candidates that are from Westerly, one candidate from Charlestown, and none of us live in South Kingstown. So it's a different tact for me because it's not, I have to expand my reach and what I've been doing and where I focus. People run for office and they say, oh, the biggest issue is, gun control, or the biggest issue is abortion, or the biggest issue is, what they kind of go off these national talking points. And let me bring it down to a story that someone told me a couple months ago about what Senator Algier did one time. This gentleman was a Korean War veteran and he had passed away, and his family wanted to have the full military burial, the 21 gun salute, the whole thing. But in order to do that, and bear in mind the funeral is just a few days away, they needed a certificate of honorable discharge. And they couldn't find their dad's certificate of honorable discharge. So who did they call? Senator Algier. Who did Senator Algier get in touch with? Senator Reed, because of his chairmanship and what he does in DC. Within 24 hours, they had the certificate delivered to the constituent. I bet you the people running for office for the first time don't realize that those are the kind of things that happen every single day when you're a senator, when you're a rep, when you're a counselor. And it's not just this, one time in your career vote on abortion. And that's important. But it's about the fact that Westerly, Charlestown, and South Kingstown are the furthest physically away from Providence. So they need the loudest voice to get their fair share back. Providence has no problem taking our tax money, but to reinvest it into our infrastructure, into our roads, into our water, into our sewer, it takes a voice. And I think Dennis Algier has been a good voice to get those things done. If you look at Route 1, just on Granite Street here in Westerly, the curbing's getting replaced. It's getting all pulled up. That's his parting gift to the people of Westerly, is redoing that part of Route 1. Those are state projects. They take a lot of effort. So my thing, to answer your question, would be to bring back our district's fair share of the money so that it stops being sucked up there. And how do you do that? You do that because you have relationships. So I can pick up the phone and I can call or text the governor and say, Governor, we need this. I can do the same thing with the lieutenant governor. I can do the same thing with DEM Director Gray, and go on, so on down the list. So when you need something from DOT, you don't have to go through, your senator should know how to get to those people and be able to advocate and get them to do the job they're supposed to do right here, whether it's a dead deer on the road or whether it's, devastation from a hurricane that needs immediate relief. And so I have a track record of that. There's a video online I watched the other day where I stood with Senator Algier and Representative Azanaro with Senator Jack Reed. And we talked about dredging Winnaplug Pond. Dredging our salt ponds is a big issue, and replenishing our beaches and planting eelgrass. So I stood there and we said, we're going to get this done. And how do we get it done? I had put aside through my council money in our local budget, which then gave us a state grant, which then gave us a federal match for Senator Reed to bring the majority of the money in. Took a few years. We got the pond dredged. We planted the eelgrass. And we put the sand on the beach. That's how you do the job, I think. And that's, as a senator, that's what I would do. And I wouldn't need on the job training. I'd be ready day one. I've done this already. I do this all the time. State, local partnerships. You can get a certain amount of money from your town. You leverage that. We just dedicated a bike pedestrian path today here in town. And it was because I was able to leverage a $350,000 grant that was supposed to be for a bike path that was about to disappear and go back into the state coffers. And I said, hang on, can we keep that money here, please? And here's the project that's ready to go. So I think it's important to be able to partner with your other leaders so that your local senator and your local rep can get things accomplished for your district. So paving the roads, fixing the sidewalks are huge, huge issues. I think that's the first thing people see. The second thing is the state formula on education funding and getting our fair share of that money. I mean, look, the state has no problem taking over schools in Providence and just pouring millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars into it. But what do we get? What do we get? How much are they giving back to Westerly and Charahoe? And so you've got to fight for it. And I've been a part of this for a long time. I remember when one of our town managers years ago, when I was kind of a novice at this, we went to the League of Cities and Towns. And I think it was funny because at that time, McKee was the mayor of Cumberland. That's when I first met him, probably 10 years ago, more. And they reconfigured the education formula, and Westerly has, over the last several years, gotten a little more of its fair share. The other thing is the issue that's really been talked about a lot is coastal access, public access. And I'm the only person. I mean, my fellow candidates are great people, but they've never held elective office in their life, and they've never actually paved a road, for instance. So they can take pictures next to a breachway and say, I'm for public access. I'll tell you what I've done. We brought in CRMC, and along the breachway in Weekapaug, they opened it up, they delineated it, and they've said this is where the public access is. They put the boulders in. We've got the parking lots. At one point, we didn't even have a parking lot on the right-hand side where the Dunes Park is, which is kind of funny because that's where I am now. But years ago, that was cut out and returned to the fishermen for the fishermen's parking lot. I worked on the harbor management plan and voted for it, which identified every right-of-way in the town of Westerly. There's a couple that are disputed. One of them is this place called Spring Avenue in Weekapaug. We had to send that to CRMC. It's been 2 years. They haven't given us an answer. That's an unfortunate one. And I voted for granite markers at every right-of-way on Atlantic Ave because people would move the signs. So we put granite posts in the ground that's carved right of way. Bluff Avenue in Watch Hill, he had a situation where half of the right-of-way was fenced off and being used as a private driveway for a house. I went down there a few weeks ago with Sharon Ahern, who was one of the candidates before she lost, and the town manager. Within 24 hours, that chain link fence was removed. The bush was cut down. The sign was moved to the center saying public access, and it was opened. I have a record on shoreline access. These people can talk about it all they want. I've got a record. And yes, I would have voted for the Senate bill that says instead of mean high tide, visible high tide. So I think that's an important issue, and that's my stance and my record on that. I've also the only candidate that's actually created 2 public kayak launches in Westerly where we had none, and got the signage put up as well and a place for them to drop off. So I think the difference is in this race is, there's 3 good people running for this office. It's down to 3 of us. I like them both. I think they're great people, but they're a little younger, they're a little greener, and I just don't think at this point in time we can really afford on the job training. I'm ready to go day one. I've done it. I've worked with these people. I know the people. I know how to get it done and how to bring it back. And I've done it as a town councilor. If you give me the opportunity to do it as a senator, I think I'll be able to do more. And I think if folks in Westerly and South Kingstown are saying, well, who's this guy? I can at least say, well, here's my track record in the town that I've been representing. And if you look at my record here, this is what I can do in Charlestown and South Kingstown, if allowed.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great message. And so the last question, we're going to come to the end and come to a close here. I ask every guest on my podcast is, if you could leave one piece of advice to the listener, could be about business, life, politics, whatever you want it to be, what would that piece of advice be?
Do something that's positive. There are thousands of people that live in every town, but there's like 300 people that do everything. You see when there's some kind of an event, when there's a fundraiser, when there's a cause, it's like the same people. And everybody else is like, I don't have time. Make time to do community service, whatever it may be, whether it's going out and helping pick up some litter, whether it's volunteering at the local animal shelter, whether it's going down and helping, rake a lawn at the armory or something, whatever it is. Help my buddy Ken put the flags out on the streets during Veterans and Memorial Day. Those are all things that are public service. And it's so important for people to do that and to teach your kids to do it, to get them involved beyond the 10 hours or whatever it is that you have to, or 20 hours that you have to graduate high school. Beyond that, service above self should be something that we instill in everybody. So that's my advice is go out there and serve. So few people want to run for office, and I get it. Who wants it? I mean, literally, we get paid on the Westerly Town Council $3,600 a year. That's public service. That we ain't doing it for the money. Let's just put it that way. It probably costs. And
you shouldn't do it for the money,
right? But what I'm saying is that we need more people to stand up and do, rather than just sort of be armchair warriors online and say,
Yeah.
It's like
Absolutely.
just do. So I've just always wanted to do. I don't know, like I said, if it's in my blood, whatever it is, it's in my DNA, but I want to do. And I think more people should do.
Well said. Yeah, exactly. That's very well said. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and talking to me and taking time out of your day. It's been a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and I appreciate what you're doing, and you're getting involved, and you're young and ready to go. So you got your whole
Absolutely.
life ahead of you, kid. So just keep going, keep plugging, keep interviewing. Who knows where it'll lead to? Just ask. The worst people can say when you ask for an interview is they can say no.
Yep. Yeah. And that's happened to me a couple of times with local people, and Stephen Pryor never got back to me. He said he was going to come on. So I think now it's official that he's not coming on. So
Well, he did lose.
yeah, exactly.
I
but
get no's all the time. So like I've
Yep.
interviewed really cool people on my show, like famous cool people.
Yep.
But Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin came to Foxwoods a few weeks ago, and I said, let me just request it. No,
Yeah. Yeah.
they say no.
Yep. It's all right. But yeah, so thank you very much again. And thank you everybody for listening to this episode of Knowledge is Power podcast. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel now, where this Zoom podcast will be uploaded, and 2 other episodes are up there right now. So now hopefully throughout the rest of the podcast that I record will be video as well as audio. So thanks for listening, everybody. Also, make sure to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatnot. Thanks, everybody, and I'll catch you in the next one.